one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Tom, would you take roll, please?
Gladly. Chairperson Fox.
Here.
Vice Chairperson Mitchell.
Here.
Secretary Murphy is here. Trustee McMullen.
Here.
Commissioner Chisholm.
Here.
Commissioner Mayer.
Here.
Commissioner Ekman.
Here.
All right, thank you. Item 4A, a little housekeeping here for the first meeting of the year. We have 4A, Heartland Township Planning Commission Rules and Procedures. Troy, you want to touch on that for us?
Yeah, at the first meeting of every year, the Planning Commission needs to adopt its rules and procedures, bylaws. These are carryover from last year, other than updating of dates and the calendar for meeting dates. I'm not sure if those are in here. There's no changes other than just updating the dates. These are essentially the rules of, what the duties of the Planning Commission are, the committees that the Planning Commission can have, how it shall conduct its business, and so forth.
Okay, any questions for Troy? Comments, anybody? Not, we just need a motion to accept the Planning Commission meeting bylaws.
I'll move to approve the rules and procedures, bylaws as presented and dated February 12th, 2026. Support.
Okay, motion from Ekman, second from Mitchell. Any changes we discussed? No? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next up, election of officers. We have chair, vice chair, and secretary. And we would like to,
I'll make a motion,
go right ahead.
unless anybody else. I'd like to make a motion to keep the officers as they are. Mr. Fox as chairperson, Mr. Mitchell as vice chair, and Mr. Murphy as secretary.
Any discussion? Any fighting for the job? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you. Committee appointments, we'll just leave those as they've been. So if you, whatever committee you were on last year, we'll continue in 2026. Next up, item 5, approval of our agenda.
Make a motion to approve our agenda for Thursday, February 12th, 2026.
Support.
Motion from Grissom, second from, what's your last name? Murphy?
That guy.
Yeah, that guy.
Happy New Year.
Yes. Any changes? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next up, approval of meeting minutes.
I'll move to approve the Planning Commission meeting minutes of December 18th, 2025.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion from Mitchell, second from Ekman. Any changes? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next up, item 7, call to the public. Anyone this evening? Okay, we'll move right on to item A. Item 8A, site plan application SPPD 26003, Chick-fil-A. This is a plan development, and we are at the final step here at the Planning Commission. Why don't we turn the floor over to Troy, and if we end up needing you, we'll have you come on up, okay? All right.
Okay, let me start off by explaining where this project is. This is the new zoning map. So from the major intersection of US 23 and M59, from that intersection going east on M59, this is the property on the north side, M59 right there on Heartland Road. It is the former Big Boy site. As was mentioned, this is a planned development. That planned development process is essentially a 3-step process with conceptual. The applicant has gone through conceptual at the Planning Commission as well as the Township Board. The next step is the preliminary plan. The Planning Commission has recommended approval of that preliminary plan. The Township Board has also approved the preliminary plan. The last stage is the final PD. And in this stage, we're really looking at the PD agreement and/or any easement documents. Sometimes in the past, we have some slight amendments to site plans that also we look at. In this case, there's really no site plans we're looking at. There's no building elevations. That's all been done. So what we have here tonight is the PD agreement, and you have a copy of that. So, and then this will go on to the township board as part of this phase as well. It is technically a rezoning of the property from general commercial to PD. This will also go on to the township board where they will make a final decision. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay. So as we know, we don't do much at the final step of a PD. Are there any questions or comments for Troy or the applicant? Any comments anybody'd like to make on the document itself or anything in the packet? You go
I have,
ahead.
just one question. Are you making any progress on the easements from Rovey Road and Heartland Road?
Is this on?
Yep.
Yes, so they are very close. So they've been going back and forth. We actually had to draft an easement so we could present it to them. So I mean, we're days away
Very good.
from everything, yeah.
Okay.
Perfect. Anything else from anybody?
Was there any advancement on additional signage?
Yes, that's all been added. All the signage that you requested as far as like directional, that's been added to
Great.
the plans, yeah.
Anybody else? Anything? If not, and you are so inclined, there is a motion to be located on page 1 of the staff review memo.
I make a motion to recommend approval of site plan application SPPD 26-001, the final plan development site plan for Chick-fil-A PD as outlined in the staff memorandum dated February 5th, 2026.
Support?
Okay, we have a motion from Murphy, or motion from Grissom, second from Murphy. Any further discussion?
Yeah, just
I have a question.
Yep.
I think Sue said 001, it's 3.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that.
Sorry, I didn't pick that up either.
Thank you. So,
Yep.
so site plan application SPPD 26-003.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anything else? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Congratulations. Thank you.
so much to all of you for all, we can help make this into a product, so thank you.
All right, well, thank you very much. Next up is item 9. This is a public hearing, and in a moment I'll open the public hearing. Our method or our agenda for a public hearing here at the township, once we open it, is the township planner will take over the meeting. He'll give his comments. We will then open it up to the public. Anybody would like to come forward and make comments, you're more than welcome. You may not get an answer at that exact point in time. We'll then close the public hearing, and then we'll discuss, the planning commission and the planner will discuss this particular application. At that point, we'll try and get any answers to questions you may have asked. So with that, I'd like to, open the public hearing at 7:10 for the applicant Heartland Township. The township is proposing zoning amendments to section 2.76, 2.78, and 2.80 definitions, and adding a new section 5.14.4 accessory dwelling units. For the record, all public notice requirements have been met. And at this moment, what I'd like to do is turn the meeting over to Troy.
Thank you. This is a proposed zoning ordinance text change. So I don't really, this doesn't pertain to any particular property. There's no site plan to look at with this. This proposed draft would allow what's called accessory dwelling units. And We certainly have a definition in the draft ordinance on it, but just big picture, just to kind of think about what this is about, is accessory dwelling units is the permitting of a second dwelling unit in a single-family residential district. And in concept, accessory dwelling units in general are where you have one principal dwelling unit and then you have a smaller accessory dwelling unit, which in theory is different than a two-family or a duplex facility where the units would be of an equal size. As you get technical, there is no line there that you cross from accessory to duplex or two-family. It's a huge gray area, but in concept, the purpose of an accessory dwelling unit ordinance is to have a smaller one and a larger one, the larger one being the principal dwelling and the smaller one being the accessory dwelling unit. The Ordinance Review Committee has spent a lot of time going through this. One of the first things we did was just tackle what can you do on your single-family residential property currently with no changes whatsoever. And realistically, you could probably come 95% of the way to a second dwelling unit currently. You can have, I'm sure all of you have seen basements in homes that have a bedroom and a bathroom and a living room down there and maybe almost a kitchen, and that's currently now that those things exist. So certainly you could build a second structure on your property, a garage, and you can have a living room or a AKA man cave with a bathroom in there. And we looked at what it takes to constitute a dwelling unit, so we felt that term needed some tweaking to be more clearly written. So those are some of the changes. We really were not making any changes to that. We were just applying how it currently exists and just trying to make it read more clearly. And then the ordinance itself is outlining where you could have second accessory dwelling units and what those standards are. I've given you some reading material to kind of give you from Michigan State University, MSU Extension of Planning, some background historical information. I've given you some articles. I'm trying to give you both sides of the coin as to what are the advantages of doing that, and then also what are the concerns, what are the issues that sometimes can pop up with accessory dwelling units, so that you can see both sides of the issue. And with that, I'd be happy to just answer any of the questions you have as we get into it.
And just for the public's benefit, we had 2 work sessions as a complete planning commission on this, plus all the work that the subcommittee did on it.
Yes.
So if we don't touch on everything, it was hashed out. But if we take a look, we've got the letter from Troy and the staff dated February 5th. He touched on a lot of it. I thought maybe we could start on page 3 and maybe just talk about some of, maybe more of the specifics of what the changes are. Troy kind of touched on them already, but if we move to page 3 under sections proposed for the text amendment, Troy, do you want to just touch on those specific sections as to what the change is in there?
So currently, if you were to look at the definition of dwelling unit, and you have to try to identify what are the elements, if I'm building a separate structure on the property, what are the necessary elements that if they occur in that structure, that becomes a dwelling unit? Could I have a man cave, a separate garage, if you will, that's just essentially a big living room with couch and big screen TV? Well, the answer is yes, you could do that. Could I have a bathroom in there? yes, you could do that. Currently, no ordinance change at all. This could occur today. Could I have a bedroom in there? And the current definition didn't quite spell that out. If you read dwelling unit in conjunction with multifamily dwelling unit, you start to see the elements that are needed to become a second dwelling unit. You need a bathroom, you need a bedroom, you need a kitchen facility, cooking facility. So what we did is try to just incorporate those elements which currently exist in the combination of two definitions and just kind of put it into dwelling units. So you don't have to read 2, 3, 4 definitions to come up with what are those elements that make it a second dwelling unit. Does that help explain it, or am I just making it more confusing? To those on the ordinance review committee, you've heard this numerous times, but for the rest of you, I hope that helps clarify.
Okay.
So again, we're not adding or changing or going in a new direction or adding new elements. We're just taking the current elements that existed and just making it clearer.
Okay. Any questions on that? Okay, so I guess the next section is the process. What do we have to do here? Troy?
The process for this? Obviously the first step would be to hold a public hearing, which we're doing tonight, and then the planning commission, as you go through this, and ultimately you'll make a recommendation on this, and then this will go to the Livingston County Planning Commission, where they will have an opportunity to make a recommendation on it, and then ultimately it will go to the township board, where the board would make a final determination on it. That essentially is your process you're looking at. So we are at step 1, I guess, tonight.
Okay. All right. Any questions or comments from the public? If there are, come on forward and.
I've got a simple question. Yeah, under your proposed language, section 514.4, my name is Edward Stack. When you get down to item 14, the proposal there is for 1,200 square foot maximum size or 50% of the principal dwelling unit, whichever limits the size of the ADU. I wasn't sure what that meant. Like, would it be the smaller of the two, either one independently determining the size?
We'll get that answer for you.
Okay.
All right.
Great. All right,
Sure.
thank you.
Anyone else?
But other than that, I'm totally in favor of this. I think it's awesome that, because like for my circumstance, we have elderly parents and my mother-in-law, father-in-law. Definitely it'd be nice to be able to build something on our property where they could live, nearby, and we could help them as they get a bit older and also incur other medical issues. So I'm totally in favor of this. I think it's a great thing. So thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, we'll close the public hearing at 7:19. I apologize, I jumped ahead and grabbed the letter there during Troy's piece, but it's the new year, Troy. That's what you get for not scheduling a January meeting. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the staff review letter dated February 5th and some of the topics of discussion and things that are in there. And I guess let's take a look at the bottom of page 2. Troy and staff just brought up some general discussion items. If there are any questions, I know we had a question from the audience, from a resident. Could we answer that for him?
Yeah, let me, bear with me here. So this, what we're looking at here, is the draft ordinance. And the strikeouts would represent words that we would take out, and then bold would represent the new words. And the gentleman was asking, near the bottom of this in section 14, it identifies the size of the accessory dwelling units. And there are two size limitations. One is for attached, one is for detached. They're very similar. So there's a minimum size of 190 square feet. The Ordinance Review Committee spent some time just trying to examine if you got a bedroom, you got a bathroom, you got a kitchen, how small could that be? I think the building code had some minimum size. So we just kind of ballparked that 190 square feet would be a bare minimum to be a dwelling unit. In most of the zoning categories, you are limited, the single-family home is limited to 1,200 square feet. So in this case where it's attached, the accessory dwelling unit could go up to the same size. Now keep in mind, a single-family home could be larger than 1,200, but it could theoretically, you could be two of the same size per year. Where they're detached, this is where the proportions kind of played. And it would be a minimum of 190 square feet. On its maximum size, it could be up to 1,200. However, if the existing home, let's say, were 2,000 square feet, it's the other part of that that says 50% of the principal would be the greater limitation then. So if the house were 2,000 square feet, the ADU, accessory dwelling unit, would be capped at 50% of that, or 1,000 square feet. Does that help clarify that, or am I just making it more?
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I was just wondering if the primary dwelling is, let's say, 5,000 or 600 square.
Then probably the 1,200 would be that would cap it there.
Okay. So we had some other discussion. Why don't you scroll up to the drawings? Because I think your first discussion put attached, detached is a real good graphic of what opportunities exist here.
Just to clarify, I'm not talented enough to draw something quite like these drawings. This
Oh,
is-
we noticed the coloring was within the lines and just made that assumption.
These are illustrations of the different types of accessory dwelling units you could have. They basically fall into one or two categories. The first one is detached. It's a completely detached structure, and this illustration would show the principal structure and then the ADU, so you can kind of see proportionally one is smaller than the other. The rest of these are technically just all attached, and one is a new addition to an existing house where it's physically attached to the house. The next one would be maybe an attic area or an upper level area that is of an existing house that is converted. Now just keep in mind, we did run into these scenarios where if the size of a single family home, let's say it's minimum of 1,200 square feet, and you have an existing home that's 1,200 square feet, you would not be able to do some of these options, because by making an accessory dwelling unit, you're creating a separate dwelling unit, and you're thereby reducing the size of the existing dwelling unit. So sometimes that could play into it, but assuming you had enough size, this might be an attic area or a second upper story area. This one over here, the interior lower level, would be the basement conversion, where you're making a separate dwelling unit in the basement. This is one where it's showing, and you're doing an addition above the garage. You're putting the second dwelling unit above the garage, still attached to the house. And then this last one is where this is crazy, I don't know why anyone would want to convert their garage, but if you did want to convert your garage, so it's a dwelling unit. I guess in this one, the cars park outside, but this would be where somebody has decided they don't want the garage and they'll convert it to a dwelling unit. These are just examples. These aren't necessarily intended to be the limits of what you can do. These just kind of illustrate examples of things you could do with an accessory dwelling unit.
And Troy, just to clarify, there could be an unusual circumstance where somebody had a 1,200 square foot house and they wanted to make that their secondary dwelling unit, so they would have to build a 2,400 square foot principal dwelling unit, correct?
Yeah, so we've, provided that that option could exist.
Yes, setbacks and lot coverage, yeah.
Okay. Any questions or comments on any of the other talking points or anything else?
Yep.
Anything else from anyone? No? Okay. So Troy touched on all the definitions on page 3, the areas that we talked about. Everybody comfortable with that? And he touched on the process.
Yep. Just in general, the setbacks, there's no proposed changes on setbacks or anything like that. Lot coverage. Parking is an interesting one. The draft here is not requiring additional parking spaces. You could theoretically have an accessory dwelling unit, and you're not required to have additional parking. It's just you can't park on the grass. You have to park on a paved or gravel surface. So in the event that you want to increase a parking area, you got to comply with the lot coverage requirements for whatever zoning district you're in. Some of the communities that we looked at, their ordinances did require parking spaces. We chose to leave that option. If they want to, then they just have to comply. Another unique feature is with the well, water, septic. We provided that they may use the water source. They'd have to get permission from the county health department and public, if it's hooked up to water, if it needs another REU or something, they have to, if it can be that you use the same well or water source, or it can be that you can use the same septic or sanitary sewer, then you can do it. Otherwise, if you have to have a separate septic, for example, then you have to get the permits that you need for that. So some of the ordinances, they kind of went both ways, where some said, no, you must have a separate water source and must have a separate sanitary source, and others said, no, you have to use we left that more open.
And for the public's benefit, how does this ordinance interact with HOAs that don't allow this?
This does not interact with those HOAs. If a homeowners association had a private subdivision regulation that said you can't have these, then those HOAs have to be the enforcing agency at that point. They would have to step up and enforce their own homeowners regulations and prevent that person from pursuing with a secondary dwelling unit. From our standpoint, we would permit that, and it would just fall to the homeowners association to deny them. So if they conflict, then it's up to the homeowners association to enforce their regulation. We can't enforce those regulations anyhow, so it's up to them to enforce their own regulations. There are a couple comments, though, I would like to share with you. I did have a further conversation with our township attorney. I've had conversations with our township attorney on this, but as recently as this week, I had some more conversations. So he did have some comments. I don't have anything in writing, and I'm going to share those with you. Our township attorney has suggested we add another element. What are we up to here? 14, 15? So I guess it would be number 16, that we have a deed restriction that would be a requirement if somebody wanted to do a second dwelling unit, that they record a deed restriction on the property. The attorney feels that would help in an enforcement matter. I asked our township attorney, do you have such language? He thought he did. Unfortunately, I don't have any of that for you tonight. Then we had some further conversation about could the ADUs be for people who are not family? And I said, yes, in our draft, family, I mean, we do have that definition of family, but they're not limited to just family. And we had quite a conversation on that, and he indicated, well, he's no longer, at this point, giving legal advice. This is not a legal element, but he was more of a policy of maybe you should just give that some concern. I had some questions to our attorney of, that's a difficult one to enforce. Everybody thinks I've got the CSI crime lab in my backyard that I can run DNA or fingerprints on people to make a determination if somebody's actually family. But I don't have that. And the burden of proof is on me to determine that somebody living there is not family. Now, certainly if they self-incriminate themselves, well, that helps. But if they don't, I have virtually no way to prove that the person living there is family. He acknowledged that, but I'll share that with you. Our attorney, Mike Homier, has been our attorney for a long time. I certainly respect his comments, even though these are not legal. Well, the one is illegal, the other one is not illegal. I just want to share those with you.
Yeah, I would have a hard time in 2026 defining what a family is anymore, even though I have one. I'm not sure it's everybody's. So I don't know that that would be an avenue to go. And then how far are you going to take that family?
Well, we have a definition of family and/or functional family, and we did talk about that at the Ordinance Review Committee. There's a couple of problems with that. One, when somebody comes in to apply and they tell me that this is a mother-in-law, and I don't know why that mother-in-law is the one we always use as an example, I really have no way to know if that person is truly a mother-in-law. I just have to take them on their word. Even in that scenario, the person that comes in to apply, they will not live there forever. And eventually they will sell that property. And then the next person's going to purchase the property with that second dwelling unit on it. Now, that new owner does not have to come in. I would have no way of knowing whether if they have somebody else living in there, whether that person is a family member or not. And if I got a complaint that said, just to kind of walk you through on this, let's say a neighbor comes in and says that they've talked to that person and they admitted to the neighbor that that was not a family member. I can't even use that statement from the person complaining because that's hearsay, so I have to still somehow prove that that's not a family member. And I don't have, I guess if I get that CSI crime lab in the budget, then maybe I've got some techniques, but I really don't have any way to be able to prove that that's not a family member. So, and Mike admitted, well, there's just inherent problems with it, but he was thinking from a standpoint of these things just blossom and essentially destroy the single family residential, and everybody has these things, which I don't know. I can't predict the future. If I could, I'd just be in a different line of work. But I don't know that I see that happening, but.
If I can comment on that, one of the considerations too was being able to use it as a rental income. So obviously that would negate this right here. So, and I think there are significant advantages in using it as a rental income. It would, of course, increase the property of a homeowner's value right off the bat if they're able to use it as a rental. And I personally don't have rentals have a bad reputation, right? Everybody thinks it's going to be trashed. And, I think in areas of nicer homes like we have here, that's not really as much of an indication as you might have in a very dense urban environment. In my neighborhood, we have homes that are rented, and they're maintained fine. We have homes that are not rented that are not maintained at all. So, I don't really know if that's a definite predictor. And we did keep in there that one of the two units would have to be a homeowner. So it's not like it's going to become a completely rental property. It's not like somebody's going to build up the whole neighborhood and put these things in everywhere. You're going to have a person living there. So I think that would probably negate the idea of a whole neighborhood all of a sudden having these things sprout up, not to mention the cost of building one or whatever. And the internal ones you really don't even see or notice from the curb. So,
Yeah, we did require, if you want an accessory dwelling unit, the owner of the property must reside on the property. Now, we allowed the owner could live in the accessory dwelling unit and rent out the principal structure or vice versa, but the owner must live there. Theoretically, if there's a problem, then the owner is aware of that problem and would hopefully self-correct that problem, but that's part of the reason we left that in there. Or not left it in there, but put that in there.
Well, I would agree with Matt. I think you should leave it out. I think it just creates something that wasn't the intent of the ordinance. I think it might create a problem later, trying to prove it or not. I don't know.
we need to visit the deed restriction issue, though.
Yeah,
Can you tell me how that is a significant advantage? I mean, I understand the concept of a deed restriction, but don't zoning ordinances, aren't they sort of like deed restrictions in a sense?
Yeah.
I mean, like Chick-fil-A cannot, 3 years from now, say we want to put an apartment building here. No, you have a deed restriction, not really deed, but it's a zoning.
Yeah. His thoughts are that if somebody comes in and they want an accessory dwelling unit, and we have them go and record a document that they essentially understand what the regulations are, and they agree that they would follow the regulations and be in compliance of the regulations, that in the event they're not in compliance, that it's an additional tool if you get into court that you can show the judge of, look, they told us they were going to follow these things, and here they're not doing that. It would not be the only thing you'd rely on, but it's an additional tool, and in his opinion, he feels that can carry weight, and he would advise. I don't have any copy of what that might read or what it might look like. Unfortunately, I don't have that.
I
But
think it's interesting because you would have to argue that every other aspect of our zoning would be like that. For example, a chicken coop, somebody puts up a chicken coop, if we pass an ordinance, we could say you have to have a deed restriction, that it can only be this many chickens. There's like, with their site plan, we look at their site plan and say, well, we have to put this site plan into a deed restriction. And I also imagine that would cost the homeowner some money to do the deed restriction. I don't know.
well, we would
That's
probably
significant.
have more of a form or something for them, but they would have to pay to record it. That's not free. I couldn't tell you what that costs, but it would take time to go to the county registered deeds. You'd have to pay to record it. Yeah, there would be time.
How do you undo a deed restriction? Let's say they want to sell the property, the new people don't want this deed restriction. You tear the building down, it's dilapidated, you don't want it anymore? Is this like you can't get rid of it? It's like you must have this,
So we're getting a little out of planning, but if you want to undo a deed restriction, you have to file another document that would declare that that prior restriction is no longer applicable or no longer applies on the property. Whenever you record, it remains recorded forever, and you essentially would record a new document that would call the older recorded document out and declare it no longer valid.
If I'm not mistaken, on the review committee, we looked at a lot of different ordinances, and I don't recall any of them requiring a deed restriction, but I could be missing that. Do you?
I don't.
So, that
We
would be
looked at
like
quite a few. I
probably
don't
15
think I
or
saw
20
it.
of them collectively all together we looked at, and I don't recall that coming up. So it definitely would not be a common request.
I think you're right. I don't recall seeing it in any of the ordinances, but I'm just sharing you what his comments are.
Any thoughts on any of it?
So my advice is, unfortunately, probably not act on this tonight until we can at least see what that language might look like. I know I have a staff memorandum that has a recommendation that is different than what I'm saying right now, but I would, in light of that conversation, I would ask you not to act on it until we see that. I would share with you his comment about whether it should only be for family or not. That is more of a policy decision. That is in your wheelhouse. He has admitted that that's outside of the scope of a legal question. Being a township attorney, he has a lot of years of just being involved in municipal stuff, so that one is more at your discretion there.
Well,
I have shared the problems with that. I don't see any way to overcome some of those problems if you say it's just limited to family. And when I asked those questions, Mike himself did not have, Mike Homey, our attorney, did not have answers to those.
Well, if we're going to delay acting on this, waiting for deed restriction questions, could we at least give Troy some guidance if we support the family inclusion statement, so he could work on a statement for that? Whether you think that's a good idea or not, based upon what you've heard?
So when we got together, one of our goals for doing this was to help with affordable housing.
Yeah.
You know, we had a lot of goals, and that if we limit it to the family, it's not meeting the goal that we tried to achieve. So I feel no, that we don't need to keep the family, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with Sue. When we initially started out, that was the sole purpose of adding language to the ordinance that allowed ADUs. So I think if we restricted it to family only, we're going to go against our own principle.
Okay. You the same? I saw your head nodding. How are we doing down there? Summer?
I have experience with the AUDs, and I'm in favor of what Sue says.
Okay. So I am also, so it appears though, let's not put a family restriction on it.
Okay. Well, do you have any other questions or any other issues or concerns or changes on any other part of this? If there's something that needs to be fixed, then since we're waiting for the deed restriction language, this is an opportunity for us to, if there's any changes, we can do that as well.
Well, I would hope if he's got it, just the fact that he didn't get it to you today, that we would hopefully see this pop up on our next meeting.
Yeah.
So those of interest would just keep an eye on the agenda, and it'll pop up as soon as we get that document.
And we'll probably ask for some examples in a sense of what would be a scenario.
Yeah, I was going to
Is there
say,
any, anything out there where we can really, here's this case that took place in Michigan, and this is how it went down because they didn't have a deed restriction, or something like that would be helpful, because, you may bring to his attention that we haven't seen it in other ordinances. Maybe he'll say, well, it's a new thing because of this case, or he'll be able to enlighten us a little bit more as to why we would consider that.
Yeah, I can ask those questions.
Okay.
Give him a hard time.
Tell him not to bring it up at the 11th hour.
Or at least have documentation at
Ready.
the 11th hour.
At the 11th hour documentation, yeah.
Yes, please. Okay, any other questions, comments on that? All right, so let's go ahead and move on to item 10, call to the public. Guys got anything else? Anything? Okay. Planner report. Troy?
I do have a few things. One, I have given you our year-end review planning report. So I'm going to be posting this on the website. This is just an annual report that we do. And it just outlines who's on the Planning Commission, Zoning Board of Appeals, who the staff are, meetings, what are the ordinance amendments we looked at, what are the actual development projects that we've had. We did a new zoning map and a future land use map on here. and some of the other applications that we get in the planning department that you don't necessarily see. We got a comparison chart of going back on some prior years and the different types of permits by categories, and then code enforcement complaints, and kind of breaking it down by, well, the different categories that they have. So just an illustration of the projects. It doesn't get into a lot of detail, but it just gives you a snippet of 2025. And this is a requirement in the Michigan Enabling Planning Act. Traditionally, I had given this to the township manager, but I kind of dressed it up the last few years. I borrowed the picture from somebody else. I'm not talented enough to draw pictures like that, so, but I got that. So just to let you know, I think that was sent to you maybe a little while ago. Also, I sent you guys an email from the Livingston County Planning Commission. They had put together a draft model ordinance regarding data centers. Data centers have been big topics really around the country, but certainly here in Livingston County, and not in Heartland, but in other parts of the state. This is a draft ordinance for you to look at, and just wanted to call that attention to that. So, yeah, that's it. That's all I've got.
Okay. Anything, anyone?
So Troy, if you gave us this to consider, what is our next step? Are we going to talk about if we need to?
It's a good
Create
question.
one ordinance
You
for
have a
everybody?
couple options. One is to say thank you and do nothing. Two is to say, I'd like to talk about this, or I'd like to explore this, or I'd like to learn more about this. Can you get us more information? Which means I then have to get you some more information. Or you can say, well, I'd like to talk about it, but I don't want to hear anything on this till June, or you could give me some direction as to whatever it is you might want to do. You've got unlimited options of what you want to do.
Well, like right now, if I'm not mistaken, was it Howell that just kind of put a moratorium out there saying we got to kind of, somebody did recently, because they're just like, if a data center came here and said, we'd like to build, do we need to get something in place to handle it better than what we have right now, I guess is the question?
It's a hard question to answer because they range in size.
Yeah, right.
Some of the things that you've probably seen in the news are fairly big. We have current ordinances where it's likely we could say, if you want to do that, you need to go into our industrial or light industrial zoning category. Certainly don't seem like a residential use, doesn't seem like a commercial use. So we have enough ordinances now where we'd probably direct it to some of our current zoning districts. And frankly, if they are of that size, we don't have enough land zoned. I think the one in Howell was something in the neighborhood of 1,300 acres. We don't have anywhere near, we don't have if you added up all of our industrial and light industrial combined, I'm not sure it would be that.
Well, remember, there's required a rezoning. I believe that they were also, so the question is, do we have land? Because they'll take land anywhere.
Yeah.
Where a couple farmers get together and say, now's the time to sell.
So then they'd have to rezone it. Well, there you would have your future land use plan,
Right.
you'd have your rezoning criteria where you could, if you so desired, make a decision to not rezone that. Or if somehow you decide, you know what, I think we do want to rezone. You'd have tools in your toolbox that you could currently use. What happened in Saline Township is they did deny that rezoning. The Planning Commission recommended denial. The Township Board denied it. They got sued, and then the Township Board entered into a settlement agreement. There are no tools in your toolbox that can that will defeat that.
Well, Troy, there was one critical issue there, and that is that they did not have anything zoned for industrial that would even remotely accommodate any kind of.
Yeah, so they
That type of
denied the
development.
rezoning, but then they got sued and the township board
Well,
decided.
from what they told me, at least from someone there told me, that it had a lot to do with the fact that they didn't have anything set aside. So in other words, if a township just doesn't want to have commercial, they could just say, we're residential only here. Well, that won't fly. You'd have to have different districts for different developments, from what I understand. And so
Well,
that was one of the key.
Even if you were in a township that had no industrial zoning, I don't think you'd be forced to, well, you have to accept a 1,300 acre industrial rezoning request. I don't think you have to say yes to that. I think you could say, look, we'll take on some industrial zone, we'll take on our fair share of industrial, but not that amount. And I don't know the full conversation that they went through ultimately. The only thing I really know is that it got denied, they got sued, then they settled. And I guess at that point, it doesn't really matter what your zoning ordinance says or what data center ordinance. If you get sued and your township board is
Sure.
going to elect to settle on that, then you can't write an ordinance on that fact pattern. Does that make sense?
Yeah, all of that makes sense. I think we heard that Lyon Township, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Their situation was different because they came in and they met the zoning they had, right?
I can't comment on that. I don't know that for sure, but I know they decided we're just going to pass a moratorium. So that would put a stop to any of that type of development. And that, just so you're aware, you can't say, well, we're going to do a 100-year moratorium. We aren't going to look at this you can't do it for 100 years. You have to make some reasonable effort in, maybe a year is maybe on the outer edge of how long you can go on that. And you got to make some reasonable effort to do an ordinance or complete your study or do something to kind of end that moratorium.
Right. Which, when we did the whole solar thing, we had this discussion, and then we opted that we needed to get an ordinance together for that, even though we didn't really have the land for a huge farm. So I'm just trying to understand if
Well,
it's something we,
I wonder if we do need to better understand it, because certainly the last meeting, probably anybody in this room wants to be at is one of those in this
Well, the other thing
township.
I was thinking is that a lot of these, if they start being turned down, there may be more of a push to build smaller ones,
right.
smaller unitized ones that are working together.
I wonder if the option would be to see if the board would be interested in putting a moratorium like these other communities have for a year, to allow us to at least understand more than what we read on the internet.
right.
I'd like to make a comment on sizes, because I know we've had conversations in the past, and statements were made that Heartland really doesn't have a parcel large enough that is zoned for this. The perception being that these data centers are typically on very large parcels of land. But I'm reading something here that says that in December of '25, in Southfield, there was a $1.5 billion data center approved on 12.9 acres, just this past December.
So that's a smaller,
Yeah, so
member
we can't
Ekman
just
was,
consider that, that these things are only on large parcels. They're on parcels as small as 12 acres even.
Well, my question would be, I don't believe in our ordinance we have a definition of where these would be allowed, whether it be industrial or light industrial.
so every zoning ordinance you can't write an ordinance that would get all currently known land uses and all future land uses. So these zoning ordinances are written to where they identify, well, here's where certain uses are, and any use not specifically mentioned, you have a couple options. Either A, which one of the current, in all of the zoning districts, which one of the current uses is most similar, and then the planning commission could determine, well, you're like that, so we're just going to treat you like that one. Whatever process that one goes through, you have to go through the same process. Or they can determine, well, you're not listed and you're not really like anything in any district. We would consider you by special use permit in these districts or in this district. So even though it might not be listed, the tools exist for you as a planning commission to determine where it would be most appropriate and how it would go. Does that help answer that question?
Yes. But I was thinking, we could pre-plan that.
Yeah, that's kind of what this is, a draft of an ordinance with specific standards. Because, let's just say hypothetically, you said, well, you're like a car wash. So you follow the same process a car wash has to go through, and you have to comply to whatever those standards are, you have to meet those. Well, that might not address all your concerns with the data center, so to speak.
Yeah, for example, cooling, whether it would be,
Yeah.
yeah, there's different methods to cool, and that's
Exactly.
significant, so that would be up in the air, yeah.
Just for the record, I did not say they are like a car wash, that was just.
So would it be up to the board to consider a moratorium like Larry's talking about, to put it on hold for a bit, so we can kind of just understand it more? Because I think there's a lot that we have to learn here before we really think that we, can wrap our arms around it, and whether 12 or so acres, I don't know how much is in the, the light industrial, and I just think that we should take some time to consider what our options are here.
Well, just keep in mind, if they do that, then that means we're definitely doing right away on the OCR, because you can't just sit on it, right?
You can't
So-
just sit on it.
So it's like a decision that means that from this group here. this
Yeah,
board-
but you don't have to meet every week on it, those types of things.
Right,
There's a lot
right,
of
no,
research
yeah,
that goes into those. I mean, we've had a moratorium on retail marijuana here for a while.
Oh, I didn't know it, okay. Yeah, there's nothing going on, yeah.
Is there a reasonable time frame then that you can have a moratorium? And
Well, it's
have to
not,
start?
it's, I would say, once you get beyond a year, you better have some pretty good reasons for why you couldn't get it done in a year. It's not a time period, it's, you may have to defend why you couldn't get it done in the time, 6 months or a year. So, and if you don't have a good answer, then you could lose.
Do
Does
we
that
have
make
other-
sense?
Do we have other examples of longer moratoriums, like Larry's point?
There could be. We don't have a lot of moratoriums here, so.
It's the only one I'm aware of. I just think if you're working on it and showing progress on it, we've had a couple work sessions, there are things going back and forth, that's showing progress.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean, to me, it wouldn't mean that there's a drop dead date as much as we're making progress on it. If it took 15 months or you may get to a year and you may go, you know what everything we got now is fine, we don't need anything more. Didn't mean that you had to write a whole new ordinance about it. We're taking the time to say, look, for a year, we're going to try and understand these and figure out where they fit. If they fit, how do they fit?
Or you might
That's all the
decide,
time
you
is.
could decide, no, we're not going to do anything. We're going to wait till they knock on our door, and at that time, we'll start the moratorium, which I think is what South
That's what
Lyon.
Howell did, I think, because our.
Well, Howell, the applicant ended up walking away. So they were exploring that moratorium, but the data center applicant said, we're no longer interested in the project. So I don't know if they have a moratorium anymore or not.
What would be the best form of planning? To wait until we're approached, or to, is it?
It depends on what your motive is, and I cannot read your mind to know what your motive is.
And I don't know if we have a motive. I think we just need to probably understand it.
Well, I'm just surprised that there wouldn't be somewhat of a legal tactical advantage for an applicant to come in before the moratorium. So in other words, yeah, we slapped the moratorium on the first time we got somebody to come on board. Doesn't that look bad? Doesn't that look?
No.
That doesn't okay, all right, it'd be no big deal. I mean, if that's the case.
Well, I'm sure the
right,
applicant's
what's-
not going to say, well, hey, glad you did that, but, you have to
I just
remember.
meant in court, they're like, I came in here in good faith to build this, and they immediately slapped this on.
Yeah, well, that happens a lot. It just, I can't say a lot.
Yeah.
It happens enough to where it's common that a township or a city would say, look, they came in with this, but we really need some time to look at this, and we don't know if we're able to properly handle this, and we just need some time to examine this. That has been tested. There's enough case law on that
Acceptable.
the municipalities win on that, as long as they truly are doing something
Right.
to, finish the research and finish an ordinance. It's not just a tactic to, like I was sarcastically saying, 100-year moratorium. You're not going to be able to just make it go away that way.
It just seems like, I mean, given the cost of even doing the OCR, all the meetings and the time, if there's no advantage to doing it, it sounds like there's zero advantage to doing it. Wait till an applicant comes and then you say, oh, well, I think we'll put a moratorium on it and do an OCR.
You mean ORC?
ORC.
Yeah, it's okay, yeah.
It's February, we haven't had a meeting yet.
Larry already commented.
Thank you. I'm not the only one.
There's a lot of acronyms.
She said AUD.
I know.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Can't call out a trustee.
It's a long meeting last Tuesday, okay?
Yeah, I'm just trying to see, is there any advantage then to being, if there's no advantage into preempting this, then it seems like a waste of resources to preempt it.
Right.
If A, we feel like there's a minimal chance of it even happening, because they generally are looking for bigger tracks, but they may not, and then B, if they do, well, we'll just address it then.
Well, again, if your motive is to tackle, if your motive is to, I mean, that certainly could.
I mean, if your motive was to attract data centers, then we'd want to be more proactive and say, let's design.
Well, I just say you might not be opposed to the 12-acre one on Old 23 on that vacant parcel, but I have no idea what they are other than when I read in the paper, and I don't always believe it.
Oh, yeah, right.
So
You don't, yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if a 12-acre data center in Heartland Township is a bad thing.
Right.
I don't know
Right.
that.
It's true.
I don't know.
And if precedence is set that that's the only place that it can go, and that's the only one, then maybe it's done at that.
Yeah, you'd have to determine what it's most like. Hopefully not an essential service. Yeah, I don't know. We can talk about it without having any moratorium. We can still gather information, talk about this, gather what we can, and be having discussions on it.
When you say we, does that mean us as a commission, or?
Yeah, well, we can have a work session as a whole, and Troy can pass information just like this along.
Yeah, this just came from Livingston County. They put something as kind of a draft template for you to look at. It's 20 pages long, and it goes over noise,
Yeah.
water. It probably doesn't hurt. I'm no expert. I mean, just because I'm a land use planner doesn't mean I am intimately familiar with data centers and what happens, but it probably doesn't hurt you to just do a little background checking on what data centers are. There's some YouTube videos out there that you could probably watch. You can read a lot on it if you want.
It seems like every week a new community's coming up.
Yeah, it does.
All right.
Probably be proactive to understand it more.
Yep. So I guess we can read this and
Comment later.
talk about it. Anything else?
We did have communication regarding, I assume everybody got, regarding the potential changing of an ordinance or allowing for storage containers.
Yes.
Is that something that we wanted to pursue? Sort of like the backyard chicken, it starts with somebody saying, this would be great to do. And I don't, I looked at it, and, my initial thought was, well, I'm not really impressed with the looks of those things. But I didn't know whether other people, I didn't know whether that was something other people would be interested in pursuing. Kind of interested to hear what other people thought of them right off the bat. I don't know if everybody read that letter, well-written letter, with some good points in it.
So we don't allow storage containers. They're not a structure as defined under the building code or under our zoning. We have gone to court on these to get, in fact, we just had one recently where we had to have them removed. So they're not permitted. We have somebody that already has them. They've not been issued any permit for them, and they want to have more. And the answer there was no. And in fact, the ones you got aren't permitted. We haven't initiated necessarily a ordinance compliance on that, but code enforcement matter, but they're proposing to relocate them into a building that they're proposing. But this particular person wrote a letter requesting the township consider amending the ordinance to permit these. Now, I've sent that to you. You have the same options here. You can say, thank you, we're not interested, or you could say, yes, we are, and you'd like to pursue an ordinance amendment. So I guess that's the question that is before you.
I have a preference of no,
I was going to say.
and mine is
but not
specifically for visual purposes. Back 40 or not. I think they're very junky and industrial look, and I don't see anything rural character about them. So
So,
that would be my preference.
well, I'm the opposite.
That's fine. We're
But so if you think about it, yes, as they are delivered, they don't look the greatest. But if you have them painted, look at some of these communities. I've watched some shows where they use them down in hurricane areas for housing. It was on, I think, This Old House or something, how they were using them for that, and that the house turned out great. And I've seen them where they're used as, like food truck things. I think if people want them, they should be able to have them, but bring some, I don't want to say restrictions because I don't like that word, but bring some things of saying, hey, yeah, you can have them, but they can't be tagged or anything. They have to match the color of your house, because it's like, I've been looking at sheds and everything, and the portable sheds are the same thing. They have a roof, they have walls, and they're delivered to your property. Yeah, they look a little bit better, but, I think it's an option that, it's a cheaper option too than one of those portable sheds. But, make sure that they have the foundation down, whatever's required, the gravel or, whatever. And I think, they would be fine. I've seen my friends have them in their communities. I don't see an issue with them.
Are you thinking about considering having one brought in, having a roof built over it to look like a house, having windows put in it, and it landscaped?
What, for my yard?
No, just
No, just
in general.
if you want to make it look nice, what do you envision?
Paint.
As
Just paint, so
Like-
it's just a big
So,
rectangular
okay,
box paint.
say my house is this color, but the one that gets imported is, black or dark brown, what I've seen them with, whatever symbols on the side. No, I would paint it the same color as my house to match. So, like the whatever. The accessory dwelling unit.
That acronym.
Yes, whatever, because we talked about how the houses have to look similar. Just make it cohesive to the property and make sure there's the right foundation, underneath it. If it, like those sheds, they require, few inches of gravel, whatever, or a cement pad, do the same thing. Hey, and if they want to build a roof over it so it doesn't, whatever, pool on top, I don't know how they're done, but
I would say that the intent of most people that want them, though, 90% are just going to be for cheap storage. They're not thinking like you're thinking, like turning it into an ADU or something pretty or beautiful, I think it's mostly going to be industrial, commercial storage is what people have in mind. So And I don't know how you can improve the looks of it with just paint. I mean, I'm sure there are things you can do to make them look really cool, but that's not, wouldn't be really, I don't think what most people are looking to do. So that would be my concern. The foundation, frankly, I don't care what the foundation's like. I care what it looks like to my neighbors, and that's a problem we have right now. We have these things popping up, and they're not pretty. But, you know, I also think in terms of, you know, I'm trying to think about how you can allow people to use their property, you know, the best they can. And this is sort of like the solar panel thing where, you know, I don't care how many solar panels you have, if you have 100 square acres and I can't see them, you know. This is sort of like one of those things, you know, a junker clunker car doesn't offend me if it's in the middle of your 40-acre parcel. You know, if I can't see it, it doesn't offend me. But you know, this is always problematic because then you start, if you were to try to address that visual concern, I think that would be the biggest thing. I think most people would look at that as very unpleasing visually. I don't, you know, we don't have a public meeting here for people to comment, but I think most people, I know most people in my neighborhood, when one popped up, would find it ugly and not conducive. And mind you, a lot of neighborhoods are kind of like, my neighborhood, part suburban and other part would be agricultural, transitional, whatever. So you have this problem where you have things close by, and it's not so easy to say, okay, you know, how can we design an ordinance where people don't see these things? They're going to be seen. They're going to be in there unless you make it so restrictive that it really becomes almost useless. So I think you have to look at them as, you know, I mean, I guess I just can't see that the color of the paint matching the house. Mind you, it might be significantly far away from the house, and I'd rather see it painted brown or black anyways.
But what if, okay, say somebody puts up a pole barn, their house is maybe this color and they make it blue. I mean, that's not the same either, and that, to me, doesn't look great either, but it's, you know, hey, maybe what they can afford, and then, you know.
I mean, I agree, I'm not a big fan of pole barns, although incidentally, I mean, the same scenario, they can be made to look nice. I don't think we do that per se, but if you've ever seen Sue's pole barn, it's amazing. You look at it like, that's a pole barn? How did you do that?
I painted it.
You did more than paint it.
I didn't paint it.
You did a few things that really made it look very nice, but most pole barns aren't that way. I mean, pole barns can be very, very ugly.
But a pole barn and a steel box are two different things.
A pole barn is an agricultural, rustic, rural feel. A shipping container is out on the coast with a bunch of big cranes hauling them up. Very industrial, is not rural character by any definition, other than trashed up cars and broken down farm equipment laying in the field. That's where you would find a good-looking one
It
of
would
these.
seem to be fine in industrial, for example. I mean, you know, you think about scrapyards, you know, you look at these junkyards, you know, you're like, this is a mess. I mean, you could put 10 of them in there, it wouldn't make any difference, right? But when you're talking about commercial, just picture going up and down M59 and seeing these things, or, okay, so say we just make it agricultural, well, a lot of these are going to be seen from the street. I just had the feeling that they're not going to look very natural. They're not going to blend in like a red barn or a tractor or a bunch of hay piled up somewhere. You know, I guess. I mean, I've seen you see these farmhouses with like 10 different structures, half of them falling apart. You know, a little chicken house, a little this and that. Was that a well house from who knows when? And they actually look kind of. I mean, they don't look bad. You know, I mean, they're just what you expect. But a shipping container. I just had the initial feeling that to me it would be somewhat not desirable.
So then,
But-
another question that came into mind, what if somebody has a camper parked, you know, in their driveway? And what's the difference between a camper and
Well, I certainly
a
would.
covered
Visually?
trailer?
The visual
I-
difference between a camper and
Yeah,
a
and
shipping container?
No, I'm
Oh.
saying like, you know, instead of my camper, I can put a semi-trailer there, and that's my camper in my yard, but yes, I'm storing stuff inside of it, just like my camper is now. You know, I mean, it's,
So you're
you
saying,
know, it's,
well, yeah, I'm not sure exactly. I guess I haven't seen very many semi-trucks being used for storage in people's driveways.
Oh, you haven't
I
gone
get-
down Mason Road yet?
Well, I guess we probably, because we could be here all night on it. Comments, others?
You know, my gut was I didn't care for the shipping container either. It didn't feel harmonious with our agricultural whatever. I understand, it was a well-written letter that they put out there, but it was the visual problem that I was thinking. So I was kept thinking if they want it, because it makes a lot of sense, can they just visually screen it? What can we do? So, but that's as far as I could go with it. I just visually didn't want to see that container, even if we painted it. But, you know, if they housed it in something, hid it behind a wall, I'm good with it. Because that is, you know, we've got some farms, as we've seen, that have a lot worse problems than shipping
Yeah.
containers, you know? So, I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd rather not see a shipping container.
Okay.
Yeah, my point of view is appearance. And so I was trying to think, well, how could we write an ordinance that would allow those for a farmer's perspective on large acreage so that they wouldn't be visible to the typical person. But I think that would become difficult to write. So my objection to them as well is the appearance. Whether you painted it or not, they have that structure that said, I'm a shipping container. So now, like Sue said, if they screened it somehow, maybe I could agree to it, but my out-and-out perspective is no.
Where are you, Tom?
So I'm pretty much where the group is. I'm not interested in the look of a shipping container. I have a problem with screening things that we don't like. So if we approve shipping containers, as long as you screen them, and we approve solar farms as long as we screen them, and if we approve whatever we don't necessarily like and screen them, we're all of a sudden living in these boxes of screens that we're not looking at anything like we are today, and everything is covered by a wall. And I don't like the consideration of them, and I don't like a farmer that might have 1 and 3 and 5 and 7. Where does it stop? And at what point then do we have another salvage yard?
Well, that would be
Because they're not
that would be
used and they're not
restricted by
maintained, and
ordinance.
how do we enforce whether they're being used and maintained, and they're just kind of collecting them? So, I don't care for the idea for a visual, and I really don't know what to do about the screening part of it.
Okay, Troy.
All right.
You got information. I guess you can give feedback. All right, anything else?
So is this a good topic to enact a moratorium on?
No, you don't have to, because you don't already have it.
I don't have anything.
The only thing I have to say is there's the Heartland Family Winterfest this Saturday on the 14th
Yeah.
down at Heritage Park, 1 p.m. to dusk. It's on M59, west side of Fenton. So fireworks, games, music, crafts, whole bunch of stuff. I know Larry works hard on making this a special event, and it can also be found information on it on the Heartland Livingston Facebook page.
And it looks like we're going to have snow.
Yeah.
Oh,
For like the
he
second
was-
time.
He was worried that, since the temperatures were rising.
Yeah, but I think that, I don't know
We're
if
going to
they'll
get
rise enough.
snowmaking machines next year.
But we have had so many years that this has been so difficult because of the heat and all the effort and energy for
Yeah.
the ice skating, and
Yeah.
it's how everyone maintains jovialness,
Usually,
but
yeah.
I remember the Plymouth Ice Festival was like, for so many years, it was like they were melting faster than they were carving up.
I've been to this one more often with mud on my boots than snow.
Right.
So, all right, anything else? All right, a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Support.
Mitchell and McMullen. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thing that's become a tradition.